Hi there, and welcome to a special production of the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. I am Jason Evans. I'm your host for this event. I am a film critic and the co-chair of the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival Film Selection Committee, and all of us should have just finished watching the wonderful film, Howie Mandel, But Enough About Me. And so I am delighted now to welcome into this conversation both Howie Mandel and the director of that film, Barry Avrich. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here and for producing this delightful piece of filmmaking.
Apparently there was not enough about me, so we're still here.
I was going to say the title of the film sort of undercuts our conversation, but there was enough about you, but we want even more. Even though there was enough, we want even more. Is that okay?
Listen, more me is always good for me. I can't get away from me. I'm a huge fan of mine. I go to just about everything I do. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to be part of this festival. And even more importantly, and on kind of a serious note, I'm so honored that Barry, who has become a good friend of mine and my family, who I think there are many more illustrious documentaries that he has been part of and his name is on that are in my mind, far more interesting than mine. But the fact that this guy wanted to do a documentary on me was the honor of a lifetime and exciting, but at the same time, probably one of the most uncomfortable endeavors of my entire career on so many levels.
Well, let me start with that because you led me into my first question. And Barry, I'll go to you first, and Howie, feel free to jump in. How did this come together? Did you approach Howie? Did Howie approach you? What happened to bring the two of you together to make a film about Howie?
It's a love affair. At the end of the day, I grew up.
My wife's here.
All right, bring her in. I grew up in a different city, but grew up in a house that really loved comedy. So those record albums were there. Woody Allen and Bobby Sherman and Lenny Bruce and all that stuff. And then we moved to the next decade, and I saw Howie probably when I was 16 or 17 at a comedy club in Montreal. That was an offshoot of the one that he launched his career at, Yuck Yucks in Toronto. It opened up in a dingy basement in Montreal, and I went to see him, and my head exploded. I would have never thought that 300 and I do this 360 and I'd be doing a film about him, but all of the standard technical aspects of comedy that I grew up with, the setup of a joke, the Catskills that I grew up going to, and all that stuff, the Woody Allen stuff, the storytelling was out the window. Now this was just pure physical craziness. And as a guy living in a tiny city in a basement, trying to escape, this was pure escape. And then you fast forward to me producing the Canadian Screen Awards, which are our Oscars in Canada. And, and Howie was a sort of a dream host idea. I produced the show the year before with Norm Macdonald, and he said, "Who are you going to do next year?" And we're kicking around ideas. And I said, thinking about Howie Mandel, and he goes, "Perfect. Loves television. Fantastic." And I started going back and forth to LA and hanging with him. We worked on another project together. And then, I said to myself, why isn't there a feature film on Howie, a documentary? Thought there was. And off we went, and talk about a labor of love. I mean, not only to spend time with him all over the place, from Lake Charles, Louisiana to Toronto to LA, all over the place. It was the best experience ever.
In answering your question, and he just did, that he approached me, I would never, in your mind, really, do you think that I would have said, "Hey, you know what? You got to do a documentary on me," because I am a wonderful specimen that people are going to be so. When he approached me, not only was I honored, but at the same time embarrassed. So you can be, because I just think that, the name Enough About Me is the way I really feel. Enough About Me. I like doing what I do. And I feel blessed that I was given the opportunity in life to do what I do, because what I do, it caused me a lot of heartache and strife at the beginning of my life. I've been very open about my mental health and, and things that I've been diagnosed, and my anxiety. This behavior that he calls so out of the box was considered a problem. And now that's what I get paid for. That silliness, that kind of life without a plan got me in trouble, got me thrown out of school. And today, for doing the exact same thing, somebody writes me a check or says they want to do a documentary. I just love, and the thing that I'm missing most about, I just told my wife yesterday, besides being able to hug my children and this weird world we're living in right now, is I'm realizing that I'm, as we speak, a little bit broken. I think I came to this project broken, but even more broken because I didn't realize the need I have to stand in front of an audience. And whatever, you know, some people don't even think it's comedy, but it is my communication and it is my bridge to sanity and to live in the moment. And the fact that I don't have that right now is really tough for me. And the fact that I had to talk about that in the midst, like I'm known as, you know, a world-renowned germaphobe, even more than I'm known as a comedian or an actor or whatever else I do. And who would think that at the moment in my career, in my life, that somebody just wants to do a documentary, there would be a world pandemic. It's almost, I think I'm going to wake up. The irony is not, you know, is not gone unnoticed, but it doesn't seem real. And it doesn't seem real that somebody would do a documentary on me. It doesn't seem real that the documentary was done and he continued to pursue. I thought as soon as this happened, as soon as the NDA was shut down, I thought Barry would be shut down. But no, Barry called me and figured out ways and wanted to talk to me in the midst of this.
Well, I was going to ask about that. And to me, that's one of the amazing things that I noticed as I was watching the documentary is that it's clear that a lot of it was done beforehand and then suddenly it happens and you have to respond to it. Barry, talk to me a little bit about, you know, the challenges that you guys encountered and the ways you conquered those challenges to be able to make this film in the midst of the craziest thing that's ever happened to any of us in the history of any of us.
Well, look, I have said from the day the pandemic started that if you isolate your imagination the way we're all feeling isolated, then you're going to be dead. As certainly somebody that like me, I mean, Howie, we haven't talked about this, but there's huge similarities in not sleeping and wanting to keep going and being on that treadmill for hours and hours. If I stop, I'm frightened to death. It is a psychosis as well on that end of it. So I figured as I went into this pandemic that if I isolated myself too and didn't keep working, then I'd be finished, right? You have to keep working. And so when the pandemic hit on that end of it, Howie and I experimented with some Zoom stuff because I still had about a third of the film to shoot, unanswered questions. And I really wasn't wild about the quality. I needed it in there. And then I approached him and you know, Howie's the best. I mean, he's a player. And he also understands living in this world, how to do it. So I literally said, look, if I showed up to your studio and sent a crew in a hazmat suit, essentially, and right in the worst of the time, would you agree to that? They'll stand 190 feet back. They'll this, they'll that. You'll put on your own mic. You'll do your own makeup. Are you open to that? And that's the world he'd been living in. So it was like, yeah. And so I did the interview via Zoom, but we physically had a crew there so we can finish the film. Then you fast forward, not to bore people watching this, but you fast forward to post-production where you have to color correct frames and make everybody look beautiful and do sound. And the production facilities really wouldn't let me in. So I kept saying, okay, but I reserve the right to change this and that. And so, you know, we'd find ways where I can look at stuff, but then go in, you know, in the middle of the night and watch through a plexiglass. I mean, it was ridiculous to finish the film and, you know, and ultimately have its premiere. But it was tough. It was tough to get the film done. But, you know, I move on now and the worst of it and a couple of other films that we're about to start shooting. But, you know, this had to get done. In my mind, you know, I have a Mount Rushmore of comedy and each head being a different category of achievement and Howie's on that mountain. So had to get
thank you, buddy.
True.
Thank you. You know, but more than what I am to comedy or my career, I feel like my career is to me. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I need comedy and I need to do what I'm doing more than anybody out there needs me to do it. I mean, you're all going to be fine if you never go to a Howie Mandel concert. You're all going to be okay if you don't watch me on TV. I won't, you know, if I don't get to do it. So, you know, the making of this is painful as that was. to even show up any place during a pandemic, or even just to show up like I am right now to just talk about myself without performing. It's well worth it. It was well worth it. And I feel like I'm not presenting anybody with a gift of entertainment, but I feel like a big gift has been, given to me by my friend.
Well, you know what? I also love the fact, I mean, there is this Jewishness about legacy and, and remembering not to get emotional, but remembering your father, remembering your Zeta, remember all these stories that pass by. And
Sure.
for Howie's beautiful grandchildren, and they're gorgeous, who are too young to appreciate, the full extent of their crazy grandfather, Zeta, whatever you're called on that end of it, to have this film immortalized, to say, hey, here's who he was. Here's who he is on that end of it. I love doing that. And so I'm thrilled that he has that.
So you guys keep on hitting on things that I want to come back to.
Go ahead.
And we're going to come back to the Jewish thing. But Howie, I wanted to ask you first, you said yourself, as a legendary germaphobe,
yeah.
Is the pandemic harder, or do you look around and go, hey, the rest of the world is acting the way I've always acted now?
It's kind of a mixed bag of, misery is not enjoying company at this moment. This is really, I believe it's tough on everybody, and a lot of people are much worse off than I am, and mentally, as far as how they're handling this. I'm a really lucky guy who has really good friends, an amazing family, a career. So that's not an issue at this time. But and that's why it's really hard for me to even answer this question personally. But it is tough. I've upped my therapy, my meds, and I'm having a really rough time. And most of the reason that I personally are having a rough time, yeah, we all are. And, there's no comparison. What affects you like it affects nobody else. So I can't compare it to anybody else, but I can tell you this is really difficult. And it's really difficult the biggest problem I have is not being able to do what I do, because what the pandemic has taught me is it's not a career. It's my life. They say show business is my life, but it really is. It's the thing that keeps me sane. It's the thing that keeps me going. And without being able to do it, I found it by accident. It was not a path, as you saw in the show. It's not a path I set out to do. I found it, and I went, "Oh my God, this is my comfortable place. This is the place where I can survive. This is the place. This is my exercise, my mental exercise. This is how I connect with people, because I'm not outside of, these Zooms. I'm not a real social person. I'm an introvert. I'm scared. I don't like talking outside of performing or promoting. So, my fear level is that's the biggest emotion I have now, is in the red line.
I find that I'm shocked to hear that someone who gets up in front of audiences the way you do. I mean, not just as a comedian, as a host, a judge on America's Got Talent, that you're an introvert. I mean, did you ever imagine that you would have this kind of crazy career?
No,
I'll be,
nobody imagined, nobody is more, I may have said that in the show, or I don't remember if it's in the movie, but nobody is more surprised, excited, and, awestruck than I am about my career. The issue is, though, that, you're kind of underlining it like and it is a great thing. I'm not knocking it, but it's also opened up a window into how much, people don't like me. There's always more people that don't show up to a film or a concert, and I'm crazily aware of that. I wish I wasn't, because I just can't. I want to, as my wife continues to tell me, Howie, enjoy the moment. And to me, my life has just been surviving the moments. It's just, right now, talking to you, I'm okay. But if I think about moving forward, then that's where I need to call my therapist.
So Barry, I want to ask you, somewhat related to that last question to Howie. I will freely admit that when I was watching this movie and you got to the part where he was on St. Elsewhere. I was like, I'd completely forgotten. I mean, like, I think of Howie Mandel. I think of the inflatable glove on the head. I, of course, think of the comedy career and America's Got Talent and the briefcase.
Deal or No Deal.
Deal or No Deal. I can't believe I just blanked on the name of it. I'd forgotten that this guy's also a incredibly talented actor. How did you pick? How do you go through all those stories and all those varied pieces of the career and say, okay, here's how I'm going to tell this story. Here's how I'm going to tell that story. There's just so much there.
Look, I mean, let me say two things. That, as a documentary filmmaker, that it's the toughest thing in the world, but you set out doing a ton of research so that I can know Howie's life as best I can, more than him in some cases, and then set out the rhythm of a story. And the real thing was, the key for me was telling people the Howie Mandel story that they didn't know. I mean, even Ron Meyer, the former chair of Universal Studios, called me and said, I knew him, but I didn't know him. And I mean, this is the guy that was the king of Hollywood on that end of it. And that was the real ticket for me, to ensure that people got to see another side of Howie. Now, I will say on the St. Elsewhere thing that I think that, Howie makes the point that he was just never comfortable really with the filmmaking or television on that side of things. I think it was a missed opportunity for all of us, in that had it been maybe a different team, a different agent, a different, who knows, on that end of it, that and maybe Howie would have just been bored with the entire process. I'll let him answer, but I think there were huge opportunities missed in terms of incredible sitcom work, which is painful, and incredible other acting work. I just think that he didn't necessarily have the greatest projects offered to him, and he didn't have the will to go and find them. But I think that's another aspect of his career. Not that he was.
But Barry, you're absolutely right. But the thing about that was, in the 80s, when I was on St. Elsewhere with Denzel Washington, I too was being offered films. I did a couple of, they weren't the best, but I did a couple of films. But then I was offered ones which I turned down, which weren't that great. But what I already learned was that process for my mind wasn't great. To go and do, on television, which was fast enough. St. Elsewhere was boring for me. They did 7 pages a day. So what would happen is you'd come in and you do a 1-page monologue, and then you go wait in your trailer or go. And now for 3 hours, I was just making prank calls, calling friends. I was bored, going nuts in my head. I just went, I don't really understand that. And I was looking at, at the same time, this is like pre-Tom Hanks exploding. He was doing, I think I read for Bachelor Party too. He was also doing Bachelor Party and all those. And so was Rob. They were going off for 3 months. And I did too, for a movie called Little Monsters. That's where it clicked for me. And I don't want to do this anymore, is for 3 months. And I had a brand new baby. I'm living in North Carolina with nobody I know, wrapped in a rubber outfit, passing out 3 times a day. My wife is taking care of the kids at home because she is going to just start school. And I'm going like, what is this? And what does it mean? And ultimately, creatively, I don't have enough to do. I could provide you with the lines and a performance, but then you control it. You're going to edit it. You're going to promote it. I just didn't. I said, you know what? Even if I'm not famous, if I could show up 3 times a week and stand on a stage somewhere at a Yuck Yucks, and I do it here when there isn't COVID after dinner, my wife gets nuts. I go, I just got to drop in on a club, and I just drop in a club and do it. That makes me happy. And I think my philosophy at this point in my life is success is happiness. And we're always striving to make ourselves happy. And if that's with our job, if you think that money is going to make you happy, a lot of people achieve that and then they don't get happiness. If you think fame is going to make you happy, for me, doing what I do brings me happiness.
Jason, Howie's prepared, and I don't think we've revealed this before, but one of the greatest parts that he said no to, Batman. Is that true?
No, but it's good. It's a good story to tell. No, but I did say no to a lot of movies that were kind of offered to me that were big hits for people.
So what do you regret? What's the biggest regret? What's the biggest mistake you made?
Well, you have to know my psyche. My regrets are never about what I did. My regrets are about what might happen. oh no, this might happen because I did this. It's always forward thinking, which is not really forward thinking, but I'm a mess, and I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to get through this. So I don't regret anything I've done. What I try to do, and this is going to sound like psychology speak, but I live in the try. And I think it's good for all of us. Try to live in the now. The only thing that's real is now, is this moment. It's my perception of what happened and how it was received. That's only perception. It's not real. There's how I remember it. Is that real? It's real to me, but it's not there anymore, the past. The future is not guaranteed. You don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what it is. The only thing that's real is right now. So I don't regret. I only live in the right now. And all I'm doing right now is Zoom on a Jewish film festival in Georgia. That's all there is. And I'm thrilled that you're interested in asking me a question. And that's all. And I have no regrets.
Hey, we are so thankful you could be here. You're living in the now. I'm talking to Howie Mandel. I mean, come on. But I do want to ask you as a follow-up on that. So I can already tell, actor you did not love, but
I liked acting. Acting. I didn't like the process.
But I was going to say, stand-up comedian, game show host, judge. Which of these is your favorite, and which is the one that was the toughest that you disliked the most?
Well, they're all tough. Okay, but the one that I need and will never give up, and if I'm known for one thing, it would be career-wise. I just like to be known as a good human personally, but it is a stand-up. Stand-up is always the go-to. Stand-up informs everything I do. Stand-up informs me even as an actor, because what people don't realize, and I tell this to everybody, I get an opportunity as a stand-up, not only my time on stage, but it is even though it's mostly a one-way communication, but it really is a two-way communication, because if I could say something that tickles the fancy of that audience, then I kind of know you. I kind of know your sensibility. And what I have found in traveling all over the place, and I was doing up until 3 or 4 years ago, close to 300 live dates a year. So even when I'm doing Deal or No Deal, or I'm doing AGT, or I'm flying out at night, doing a casino or a theater or wherever, and then flying back. And what I learned, and what I kept telling everybody here in LA is, this is not the world. That it's very different in other places, and it's not, and they're not all the same. It's always very different. And I kind of, it's kind of interesting, because as a producer, I go in and I try to pitch shows, and the people that are making decisions at regular networks about shows that the nation is supposed to be watching, they don't know. They're not out there. They don't know. They're buying for their own taste. They're not really buying for people. And that's I think why broadcast television is going by the wayside, and, kind of premium, entertainment directed at whatever that audience is winning, and so stand-up is the answer to that question. I like doing all the different, I have the attention span of a gnat. So I like going and spending a day at AGT, and then flying to Atlanta at night and going to do a concert. I like doing Deal or No Deal for a week, and then going into a booth and doing voiceover for Bobby's World. I like being on a set where now they'll just, I can do a guest spot for 3 days someplace, and then come into my office and do a piece for my documentary. I need to do all those different things, and they each have their set of circumstances. The only thing that comes with a lot of fear. But the only place I'm comfortable is stand-up, and I'm comfortable with my discomfort, as I said in the movie. It's like a roller coaster. I love that fear, and I love conquering it. The other things have different kinds of fears. Like it took me a while to get used to AGT. AGT was when I got on the show, America's Got Talent. I was going to locations. Now everybody comes to LA, but we would be in Dallas and seeing the talent from Dallas. Well, there'd be a theater of 3,000 people. And I would say, well, I don't know if that song worked for you. And then I'd have 3,000 people, because it was their hometown kid, booing me. I'd never been in front of people. I just want to be liked. I just want to connect. So that was really tough. But then I have to kind of get inside myself and saying, even if I'm speaking to him, the cameras, 10 million, 15 million people are watching what I'm saying. I could serve these 3,000 so that I get applause, but I promise you that the 10 or 15 million will not, hook into me. By the same token, when I got asked to do a game show, when I got asked to do that, I thought that was going to be, as you saw in the show, that was going to be the nail in the coffin of my career. But I was sure, in 2005, no comedians were doing game shows. I think that Steve Harvey owes me at least a
residual check, right?
Yeah, because there was no comics before me. The comics do it. Groucho Marx did You Bet Your Life. And then, the somebody whose currency is irony, the punchline was the game show host. I didn't want to be a game show host. And I prepared all this comedy. And then, empathy, because I'm a human being, came through first. And I just wanted people to win. It turned out good for me. I didn't know. I was scared to death. I didn't think that was going to be good for me. It turned out to be the most success I've ever had. Deal or No Deal. When you say you forget St. Elsewhere was a totally different audience than the people that knew me from HBO stand-up, which was a totally different audience that knew me from Saturday morning Bobby's World. Until I did Deal or No Deal was the first time that this convergence of, oh, that's the guy with the glove on his head. That's Fiscus. I know this guy. I didn't know he was bald. So that brought it together. And that was the thing I was most trepidatious about doing. Well, but to answer your question, go ahead.
No, but let me add, Jason, to be on the road with Howie, which is what I really wanted to do, and watch him. And then, I could have called the film Mensch, but then, whatever, a 16th of the population would know what the hell that meant at the end of the day. But he's approached constantly, even given, his neurosis,
OCD.
And he has tons of time for everybody. I've done, you can go and look me up. I've done lots of documentaries, and a lot of them on really not nice people in the entertainment business, and who just feel that they're above everybody else and dismissive and have huge chips on their shoulders. You can figure it out. But this man, no, he's so happy to be there and to spend time and get feedback from people, not because it strokes his ego. At the end of the day, it's what he gives back to them. I had my moment with Howie Mandel, and it's amazing to watch that. He brings more humor into their lives and that sort of menshiness. And so that's kind of fun to watch.
I have never gotten used to the fact that I'm not used to it, and I will never get used to it. My daughter is a teacher, and she taught for 10 years in the inner city. And I used to go and do some, just watch because I was fascinated, or I do a reading time for those kids. And there's somebody who, takes somebody who comes from a place that has less opportunity than I came from, and she inspires, and not her alone, but I'm just talking about teachers. And she inspires and maybe changes the life of some young person and sends them off. I always have felt I don't do anything. I really don't do any. I feel like a real lucky guy. I don't feel like I do anything special. I feel like if you go to an amateur night, and I forget if this scene is in, we talked about this, Barry. If you go to an amateur night at a comedy club and you see somebody die, I don't mean die, I mean die horribly, yeah. They bomb. It's because nobody's there of their own fruition. They were probably sitting at a dinner table with their Uncle Nate, who said, "You're hysterical. You should go to the comedy club." And they go, and there's 2 or 3 people that like what they say. I go on there. I'm just acting like the silly person I am. The thing that got me punished, expelled, hit for, I'm putting the glove on my head and people are laughing. I just think that I'm lucky that a larger group than just the people that sit at my dinner table share my sensibility, that silliness or that escapism or whatever. And I feel lucky. That doesn't mean that I need to be held on a pedestal or that you want to spend some time with me. I'm fascinated more about maybe even somebody like you who is actually creating a service where you are giving me the news, you are informing me based on maybe something I read that you do will inform how people vote, will inform the future of the company. I'm the guy that puts a rubber glove on your head. I'm telling you, I'm not changing the world. I'm not changing anything. I'm just trying to get through. So I've never been comfortable with the ego part of show business. And it's very funny. I once had an argument with my mom. It was at the Academy Awards. And I think it was Michael Moore's acceptance speech, and Michael Moore got up and started saying something political, and my mom said, you know, that's so disrespectful. And I said, really? You know, whether you agree with him or not, he had an audience. He's a documentarian. He wants to get his message out. And I love the pomp and circumstance that our world gives, you know, actors. It's our biggest night of the year where people who pretend get awards for who pretended best. It's not that important. It really is not. And I don't feel like I do anything important. And I feel that, you know, sometimes they overpay me, not for this Zoom. I'm not getting overpaid. I think I'm getting what it's worth, but I'm doing this for free, people. But the thing is, I'm just honored by the connections I make. The most exciting thing about this documentary is that somebody like Barry, who's my friend, wanted to do it. The fact that you're interested in it and you wanted to see it, that's really nice. It is really nice. I hope that you see some things in there that you can relate to as an audience. And you know, the biggest life preserver for me in life is to learn that I'm not alone, to learn I'm not the only neurotic one. And I hope that maybe this movie tells somebody else that you're not the only neurotic Jew who is having a tough time, you know, navigating the waters of life.
I didn't tell the neurotic Jew that we're closing night, which is even better, because if I told him, I'd go, what happened to opening night? So closing night, how many films in between closing night, opening night, and closing night? So wait a minute, will people even be interested by the time we get to closing night? It sounded like Jackie Mason, but it would be a whole thing till we got there. But it's a nice slot.
Thank you. It is, believe me, it is a very honored slot at our film festival. By the way, I want to tell you, Howie, one of the great flexes of all time is I was talking to my mom at the Academy Awards. I got to tell you, for me, that's like blow my mind kind of stuff.
I talked to my mom. No, I wasn't at the Academy Awards.
Oh, I thought you were saying you were at the Academy Awards.
No, my mom was watching. That would have blown my mind.
Oh,
but I love that I blew your mind with the lie. No, my mom was watching the Academy Awards. I phoned her and she said, Michael Moore, I've never been to the Academy Awards. I'm not invited to the Academy Awards. Remember the discussion, I don't do movies. But I have
you're a pretty big star. I bet if you wanted an invite, I bet we could arrange one.
Thank you.
He wouldn't sit there for 3 hours.
I would not sit there. I think it's really funny that we all buy into this stuff. That it's so exciting to see the awards for pretending. You know, it's really funny. Go ahead.
So we gotta wrap things up. You guys are wonderful. I could keep on talking to you for another half hour, but I know everyone is busy and has things on their plates. So I do want to close with one question. You mentioned the fact this is the Jewish Film Festival, the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. And Howie, I'll freely admit, I did not know prior to watching this film that you were Jewish. I loved the scene at your synagogue, you know, reflecting on your wedding.
That was amazing that I got in.
It's a great moment.
On Saturday.
What was it, on a Saturday?
It was on a Saturday when, you know, generally they're not letting film crews in after services when they're locked. But we got lucky because an elderly lady lost her wallet that coincidentally had also prevented her daughter from going to a Sweet 16 with Howie.
I mean, yeah.
I got
it's
in,
serendipity.
but I hadn't been there since that night.
Well, so, but the thing I wanted to ask you was, can you reflect for me a little bit, you know, how does your Jewishness affect your career, your comedy? Like I said, we're a Jewish Film Festival. Connect it all together to me, you know, with your Jewish background.
My Jewishness is what connects me to any connection I have in the world. And, you know, ultimately, and it's just my, you know, kind of interpretation, and that's what religion is. But what I love about Judaism is about respect. You know, Judaism, I went and toured, we talked about that in the movie where I said Kaddish for my dad for a year. And every time I stopped in all these markets, I wish I would have done that. That would have been a good documentary. As I stopped in all these markets, you know, different people would be teaching of the Talmud. And the one thing that I learned is, you know, there's a term tzedakah, which is the giving, you know, you charitable giving and being there for other people. But the key that I love about tzedakah in its purest form is that they don't know. It's not, you're not doing it to make yourself seem a little more grand, you know, like the Goldstein wing of a temple is, I don't know if they really care about the temple or they're the Goldsteins and they're sitting in their own wing. I think that we were put on this earth, and that's my interpretation of the chosen people. I don't know that we were chosen. I think people are chosen in general to, number one, respect a power greater than you. You know, that, and you can call that Adonai, you can call that God, whatever you, but that power, you got to respect it, and you got to, and number two, you have to be there. If in your periphery, you see something or somebody that needs help, it is unconscionable to not do anything about it. So I know, I don't think it made the movie, but Barry asked me in the movie, what do you want your legacy to be? Or what do you want your, and what ultimately, and I always say to the kids, is just be nice to everybody. Just be nice, you know, and it's not about your career. And that's happiness, you know, is if you could be nice and if you can help. Everybody needs help, but now more than ever, you know, whatever you can do is being a productive human being instead of a person in production, you know, being a productive human being so that when you leave the room, when you leave the job, when you leave this earth, the world and the place and the people you met are better for it.
Let me give you a button here, Jason, on that end of it.
Please.
Not only in terms of the Jewishness that pervades Howie's life is, you know, I watched him and I'm so connected to this, and he knows that. I watch him come to Toronto and visit his mother. I see that connection. I see that love, and there's nothing like a Jewish boy and his mother. I know it, living through my mother who's not well. On that end of it. So I saw that, and that was an immediate connection for me too. But here's the bigger connection in terms of Jewishness in Howie's life. When the Cannes Film Festival called and offered us opening night, he said, no, it has to be the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. And that to me says it all. That to me says it all.
That's really, and I think I made the right decision, right?
Yeah.
Well, we are so honored. Gentlemen, Barry, Howie, thank you so much. This was great fun, so revealing. The film is revealing. You know, I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with us. The entire, everyone associated with the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival appreciates it. I know our audience is going to adored the film. They're seeing this after they've already watched it. So, gentlemen, again, we really appreciate you taking the time, and we appreciate you being
so one
so
more
candid
time,
and
can I
honest.
ask, isn't this enough about me? Enough already, please. Good night.
There we go. And that's the perfect way to close it off. Howie, Barry, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.